Hello, my name is Philip Hendricks and I'm here at the BBC conference, the largest conference on business analysis in the world. And one of the speakers here is Lori Silverman, who is so kind to be with me here.
Thank you.
You had a talk here on strategic thinking, I believe.
Yes, on Tuesday morning I did a 3-hour workshop on strategic thinking. Okay. So I did it as a full immersion workshop where people within 5 minutes of entering the room did a full environmental scan looking at the year 2030, and then we discussed the results of that, and then we went from there to talking about how do you pick the best questions to do scenario planning and what are the steps to doing scenarios.
And can you give an example of such a question?
A
good question for strategic analysis or enterprise scan?
Well, the questions that you want to look for if you're doing scenario planning would be a question. For example, I worked with an organization that was interested in looking at how do people interface in their environment in terms of activities, exercise, entertainment, things like that. So the scenario question we used was how will people live, work, and play in the inland Northwest, and that's a part of the United States. Okay. And in that way, you get to look at the totality of what people are going to be engaging in rather than the specifics. Because one of the challenges of doing scenarios is you don't want to answer a question that's about what you're looking at. You want to look at a context that's far broader to get a sense of what the world will be like for people and then extrapolate from that what they will gain going forward.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. And how was the feedback on the conversation or on the workshop? Was it easy for people to think strategically? Because often we are diving into details right from the start.
That's an excellent question. You know, in terms of personality temperament, 75 to 80% of the people in the world are predisposed to think analytically.
Wow.
So there's very few of us, and I'll include you and I in that because I think you're a strategic thinker as well by predisposition, who really think big picture naturally. So what I shared with folks in the room is that you have to set up an agenda and a meeting in order to foster strategic thinking. You really have to think a lot about what are the items that I'm putting in, how do I word them? And then I also encourage people that you sometimes want an outside facilitator helping you to keep you on track, because it's hard to hear when you live within an environment that the conversation's doing a deep dive into analysis when what we should be doing is synthesis. And that's the opposite of what analytical thinking is all about, but it's often very difficult for people.
Yeah. A great tip that I heard on another talk in the conference here is just draw like a stick figure and an airplane and a satellite on the board. And if something comes up and you say, is this the right level? Just put the post-it on the right level. And it really makes things very tangible, very visual, and it helps people stay on the right level, the strategic level.
Yes, the analogy I often give is there's a difference between walking right to a location versus driving in a car to the location, right? Versus being in a small aircraft flying over the land versus being in a large jumbo airline. So same sort of thing, but I love the satellite because that takes you into a bigger, right, the constellation as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. It's great to use these metaphors and help people thinking on the right level at the right time.
Well, absolutely, because I think that that's a way for people to comprehend what we're trying to share with them. And as you said, if we put that up on the wall, we then have a visual that we can point to and people can go, oh, I didn't realize I was doing a deep dive. And how do I pull myself out of that? So it can help us in terms of self-regulation.
Yeah, self-regulation, that's a very good one indeed. You're also doing a talk in London end of this month, I believe, on the EDBI conference.
Yes, I'm actually doing two things. I'm giving a workshop and I'm also giving the keynote.
Wow, yes, interesting. And the keynote will be about which topic?
The keynote is titled, It's Not About You, It's About Them.
Okay.
And what I'll be talking about is there's a challenge that we have for folks who work in the data side of businesses versus the business side of an enterprise, that the folks over here are doing some amazing, amazing work. You know, they're creating data strategy, data architecture, data repositories, data warehouses, data lakes, right? All of these amazing, amazing things, and they're trying to figure out how all of these pieces fit together into an enterprise management approach. Whereas the people over here on the side of the business have questions and decisions to make, and they're all about execution and action. Not that these folks aren't either, but they see the need to structure this over here. And the challenge becomes is, how do you, at the level of one-to-one, if you came to me and you said, I want some data, I need some data from you, why it is that I should not just give you the data. Why it is that I need to step back and take you through a process of thinking about what you're going to do. So for example, I might say to you, what's the business problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
Or what's the decision or action you need to take? And then let's say you give me a solution. Well, I don't want to problem solve around a solution. I want to say, no, take me to the deeper level of understanding here. What is it that you're really trying to figure out? Then once I have that business question, then I can go and figure out the right sorts of data that might help to answer that question. We can then talk about whether or not that data has integrity to it, or whether or not we need to do some cleansing with it. But there's another aspect to that too, which is, if you don't trust me, even if I give you back the data that you really need, you probably still won't use it.
That's
because it's about, our relationship as well. But if we can get past those things, then we have to start to look for insights. And I'll talk about 3 different types of insights that you can learn from data, and why a data visualization is not an insight, why an observation is not an insight, why a pattern sometimes is not an insight. And then we'll talk about, once you have those insights, how does business storytelling fit in to communicate the actions that are needed based on the insights to other people in the organization. So,
can you give me a sneak peek on what an insight is, according to you?
Well, an insight is, I'll be sharing a story around the golden nugget. So if you look at an entire data set and you say to yourself, let's go back to synthesizing. If I were to synthesize all these different pieces of data together, what is it telling me that I did not know before? What is it that's something new and different that's really standing out? And unfortunately, if we just say to someone, oh, look at this nice chart, and this particular line is going up, so it appears that we have a trend, people will say, well, so what? How does that make a difference? What meaning does that have? And so the insight really is, how do you as a person take what these different data visualizations will say, put them through human reasoning, your own experiences, because we still need that, to say, oh, here's the implication, or here's what it might mean to us, or I never saw that before. That would be one way of looking at it. Another way might be an example that someone gave me recently, where they were trying to figure out from a predictive perspective why people leave the organization. And they looked at all the traditional HR measures. Engagement, whether or not you liked your leader, your tenure, your rate of pay, your job classification, and none of those showed any relationship. Well, sometimes people stop right there. I can't find a correlation of any kind, right? And we're done. The person who was looking at this didn't stop there. They actually went back to the business leader and said, I can't find a correlation, I need your help. Because, we cannot find insights without context and without a good business question. So in conversation with the business leader, the person said, well, I don't know, have we looked at employee benefits? And the person said, well, that's interesting. Maybe we should look at, does the person use the healthcare system, or have they been using their vacation time? And what they discovered was that as soon as a person, and this was in the U.S., stopped putting money into their long-term retirement, that was the key indicator for that they were going to be leaving the organization. So sometimes it's about expanding the scope of what we look at rather than stopping. But that requires someone who has a lot of organizational knowledge, or deep discipline or domain knowledge around the topic itself.
And someone who's able to go from walking to driving the car to driving the airplane to really get that
to the
step
satellite.
Back. And absolutely. And that's also a good practical tip for BAs to see what is the context, what is the business question where we want to use the data.
Yes, and I think that that's really the step that is forgotten, because we get so caught up in our work that when someone asks us for data, we just go into, well, what type of data do you want? Is it data about this? Is it data about that? Is it data about this over here? And we don't stop to say, well, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, that's right.
And what we also don't realize is that the person who may be asking us for that information may not be the person who's going to use it. Mm-hmm. And they may not know themselves why they're being tasked to come get that from us. And that's a bigger issue yet, because you can go this direction in terms of your data collection, give that back to people and have them say, no, that's not what I was looking for. And we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And then I end up going back to the drawing board again.
Yeah, okay. Great insights, thanks.
You're welcome.
So people can see you at the conference in London. We'll put up the link on the movie or on the website.
Yes.
Can they contact you in any other way?
Absolutely. People can contact me through LinkedIn as well, or through our website, partnersforprogress.com.
Okay, that's great. We'll put up those links as well. And if anyone has some thoughts to share or some comments or questions, feel free to do so below the video. Thank you very much, Lori.
Thank you so much.